Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Gabriela Cabero, the co-founder and CEO of CASEpeer. We're the highest rated case management software for personal injury law firms, thanks to firms like yours. And today, I'm really excited to be here and introduce you all to Rob Levine. He's the founder and CEO of Records on Time and the very successful law firm Rob Levine and Associates, and also Kimberly, the COO of Records on Time. So welcome to both of you.
Thanks very much. It's awesome to be here. We appreciate it.
Well, take a moment as we give everyone a chance to come in. Over to your right, bottom right, you'll see tabs for questions. You'll see tabs for chats and polls. So keep an eye out there. If you have any questions as we're going through the integration today, please go ahead and add those in. We'll either save those till the end, or if it's fitting in the moment, we'll go ahead and answer right off the bat. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions for Rob, and we're both very excited to highlight the integration with you all today. So before we jump in, Records on Time, as many of you probably already know, it's a modern records retrieval company, and it's our newest integration. It's a very deep integration. We're excited to walk you through it today. So Records on Time, Rob, tell us a little bit about the founding story. Obviously, you founded your law firm. You didn't need to start a records retrieval company as well. What was the journey to building that business?
So we started the law firm maybe 21 years ago, and pretty early on get heavily invested into doing personal injury. The law firm does personal injury, Social Security, and veterans disability, and decided we wanted to outsource the record retrieval. So we hired a company called MediConnect, and it didn't really go that well. Billing was a problem, getting the records was a problem. Integrations back then didn't exist. We were a needles user. You pushed a button and there was nothing. And so I decided that we could do it in-house and create our own company for our law firm. It was really the only intent. This was not the intent back then. And that's what we did. So we started the company back then, and we built it really kind of integrated, but for ourselves inside our own system, not what you see today. And over the years, I don't know, we've probably had it now for 12 years. And when we first did it, it was kind of like a platform, and you could go to it and back and forth and access it from our system. And then the technology is just phenomenal, right? Every time you blink your eyes, technology is changing. So we decided that the only way we would work with clients when we decided to open up to other law firms is if we were integrated, so I have to thank you very much. Your team, I have to say, so we've done obviously several integrations with case management systems, but your team has been amazing. One, the forethought that you had in building really such a robust system that's made it amazing for all of your clients and the law firms using you. And then for us to be able to integrate has just been fantastic, right? So the inner working between the connection and of our platform and your platform has just been seamless, which obviously is going to be great for all of your law firms, your clients, and hopefully ours. And we just decided that it made sense. We became experts at record retrieval because of our firm. We're over 150 people at the law firm, so we do obviously a large volume. And I said, let's do it. So we spent the time, built the technology, and grew it. And where we are today.
Well, thank you, Rob, for the kind words. And I have to echo you that we've built a lot of integrations over the years, and we are working on many more as we speak. And we've been so impressed by your team. And it says a lot, too, about the technology that's the backbone of your software and everything that's powering Records on Time. But the best part is that our clients will never see it, right? So speaking of which, let's jump into an overview of the integration, and then we'll transition over to CASEpeer, and we'll actually walk you guys through what that integration will look like. But the most important thing is that you never have to log in to Records on Time. So obviously you would reach out to Records on Time. You'd walk them through the sales process. You'd do some onboarding. Rob, can you tell us a little bit about what that process is like for firms?
Yeah, so the onboarding really, first, obviously we do a demo for you, which really you're going to see today on the webinar, how everything interacts between us and the CASEpeer system. And the demo, when I do a demo, really, you don't see anything other than slides of your own system because you never leave your system when you use us. And the reality is, when we broke it down, there are 16 steps to collecting a record. And when you do it on your own, you have to do all 16 steps. And we calculated that to figure out the cost of what we're spending at the law firm on record retrieval, which is one of the reasons why we decided to outsource. So when you hire us, you only have to do 3 steps. And so that's talk to your client and find out where they treated, then go into the CASEpeer system and enter the information for the record request, and then upload your HIPAA form, which is not filled out. You don't have to fill it out. All you have to do is have the client sign it. And that's it. You're done. From there on, everything is done by us. We're going to send you the records completely OCR'd, and they're going to be compressed and into your document storage system. We're then going to send you all of the costs and expenses, and we're going to obviously have single point of contact and send you all of the notes back and forth. So all of the communications is turned into a ticket, which is turned into an email on your end and pushed into CASEpeer on your notes tab. So there really is literally nothing for you to do other than order the record, and everything else is directly pushed into your system. So you get the costs and expenses to run your settlement sheets for your client, keep track of the numbers, you get all of the notes, so you have status changes and know everything that's happening. And then of course you get the records delivered into your system. So couldn't be better.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, speaking of authorization forms, we've got a good question that came up. Do you guys have a specific form that you require customers to sign, or can they upload their own for their firm?
So on your end at the law firm, you're just going to use your regular HIPAA form, because the only thing we're really doing is capturing the signature. So that's why I say it doesn't have to be filled out. So on our end, we use a pre-made HIPAA form, which we co-merge between often your firm and Records on Time. So it's a co-branded HIPAA form. So the facility knows that Records on Time is doing it and we're doing it on your behalf, because we're really about building relationships with your facilities. As opposed to, you see some record companies are screaming and calling a million times. You know, we've been doing this long enough to know that if I can call one person and build a relationship at the facility and say, hey, we have 25 different requests we need to go over because we have a number of different clients for different firms, maybe in a specific city, it's much easier. So the HIPAA forms are co-branded, but that's all done on our end. On your end, all I'm doing is capturing their signature, and then it's digitally removed and put into our form, which is usually co-branded with your firm.
Wonderful, thank you. That's a great question, and yeah, we'll chip away. Looks like we've got more of those questions coming in. But why don't we do this? Why don't we jump into the demonstration of the software, and then some of these we'll save for the end. But go ahead and keep typing in those questions, everyone. I promise we'll get to all of those as they come up. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll take a look at CASEpeer. So I think most of you joining us today are probably, let's see, give me 1 second. Looks like I've got a permission here really quick. But yeah, it looks like most of you joining us here probably are CASEpeer clients. So let me see here if I can share this way. Pardon me, guys. In the meantime, Rob, you see those questions off to the right. Do you mind addressing some of those, and I'll get this working in a second.
The last question that came in is facility-specific forms. So as part of the onboarding process, we get all of your providers up front. We ask you for a list of anybody who has specific forms that are required. So specifically, let's say mental health facilities. Mental health facilities almost always want to use their own forms. So we get those forms, and again, we're electronically digitizing the signature from your client onto that form. So my law firm is nationwide. We do Social Security and Veterans Disability in the entire country. I see a lot of you are writing things that your facilities are requiring a wet signature. I have to say that we almost never see that happen. If it happens, we'll deal with it. But it's first of all, it's a violation of so many different rules under the e-signature act and a number of other different things. They shouldn't be forcing you to turn in a wet signature. It's antiquated. I mean, for those of you who do Social Security, even the federal government has removed the wet signature requirement, and you don't need to do wet signatures. Almost all law firms now that are integrated with technology like CASEpeer, I assume you're all e-signing your clients and contracts. So if you're e-signing clients' contracts, how exactly is it that you're getting wet signatures? Are you sending out forms in wet paper and having them sign it and mail it back to you? So we can certainly talk offline for anyone who has a specific facility that absolutely will not take a e-signature. I can't think of one off of my head that we've ever had an issue that we couldn't get them to change their position. But if we need a wet signature, we get a wet signature. That would mean you'd have to send us the form, obviously, for a wet signature. What else do we have here? Definitely, are there any rush requests? So there are rush requests. So yes, so I'll just put the price out there simply. We charge $35 for a record request. $35 is a flat fee. So if you have a expedited request, if you need certified records, we don't mark those charges up. It's all inclusive. So whenever you need a certified request, you just mark the tab when you're doing your record request that it's certified. If you need it expedited, you mark the tab that says expedited, and there's no cost for any of that. So you're 100% good with whatever you need, and it's a single fee. And if the records come from the same facility, so if you call Dr. Smith's office and Susie Q in the back office is going to be providing both the record and the bill and sending it to us, we only charge one fee. We never charge two fees, one for the bill and one for the record if it comes from the same facility. Obviously, if it's coming from two different locations, then there's two record retrieval fees. Typical turnaround time. So the turnaround time, in honesty, starts longer than it finishes, and that's because we have to build the relationship with your facility. So normally we're under 30 days in the beginning. Our average turnaround time is probably 22 days. Once we've really got to know your facilities, built a relationship, everything is running smooth, that's around where it ends up being. This is free that comes with CASEpeer, or do we have to pay for the integration? The integration is 100% free. It's already built into your system. So there's no cost to turn it on. There's no cost with us. We have no contracts. So the only cost is simply the cost of ordering the records. Other than that, there's no cost at all. What is the typical turn? I did that. Is there an additional charge to our CASEpeer? No, no additional charge. Is it $35 for the record and for the bill? I answered that question already. So it's $35 if the record and bill comes from the same location. If it's coming from two different locations, then there would be two different charges because it's truly two requests. Affidavit, so yes, no problem certifying your records. There's no fee for the records. Everything is OCR. There's no additional cost for that. So let me, as you're typing your questions, you don't need to ask if there's an additional charge for anything. There is no additional charge for anything we do. It's literally a $35 fee that includes OCRing your records, that includes compressing them, delivering them, certified records, that includes the expedited request if you need an expedited request. There's never an additional charge. Cost for facility charge of, well, so obviously there's a fee for the, so the question is there a fee for facilities that charge a fee per page? So obviously there's two charges. There's one charge for the cost of the medical record. So I'm gonna, whatever the cost of the medical record is, we pay the exact, pass the fee on to you. Some record retrieval companies mark that up by a percentage. We do not. Obviously, whatever the invoice is, you're going to pay the invoice of the cost of the record, which you're paying for now. The only additional cost of the cost of the record is my fee for the record retrieval, which is the $35. What about the additional cost for filling? Let's see. How do you bill once a month? So billing is done by the order of the record. So we work something out up front. Most law firms give us a credit card up front so that they're earning points. And as we're just paying for the expenses and billing the records as we go. So that's one way we do it. Another is we bill an account. So there's different ways to work out the billing. We can certainly talk about that offline, and that's part of the onboarding process. Say a client had 3 facilities. Can I use your integration system for just one facility and do the other request myself? Absolutely, that's a great question. So as part of the starting the request, one of the triggers in order to order a request from records on time is you're going to mark it off in the system as it's for records on time. So when you're entering the medical treatment page, you're going to select records on time, and you're going to select whether it's a record or a bill. If you don't select, when you enter it, if you don't select records on time, then we're not going to pick it up. Our system goes into your system once an hour. So we're picking up your record requests and HIPAA forms all day long, every hour. And we're only picking up things that you marked off that are specific to us. So if you have a chiropractor down the street and he's going to deliver the records for you for free and bring a box of donuts while he's at it, absolutely, you should keep that process up and just use us for the other stuff that's not working out so easily for you.
So that's a perfect transition, I think, to walking it through. Apologies for the slight technical delay, but you guys were good in the good hands with Rob answering all the questions. Don't be afraid. We're going to get to the other questions as well. But in the meantime, let's hop over to CASEpeer and take a look. So really quickly here, walking you through where that integration is activated. So similar to all your integrations that you might be familiar with, it's over in your account settings, and you'll be able to go over here and activate it over in with one of the slides, and you'll have a key which you'll pass over to the records on time team. So let's take a look at a case itself, and we'll take a look exactly how the integration works. So obviously, a lot of this is going to take place on the medical treatment tab, which you're all familiar with. So for example, here I have an ambulance record. And first and foremost, I have my new client, and I'm going to activate ROT. And what this is going to do is it's going to prompt me to upload the HIPAA form. So I can come in here, drag and drop it, or click to select it. And what you want to highlight too is if you, for example, have an elderly client or a client who's incapacitated or a minor, client's not the signer, you can also add in this information and identify who the signer of the HIPAA form is, because obviously that'll be important. For those of you that are really familiar with CASEpeer, if you have a key person that you have selected on the case, like you typically do on a minor, that will pre-populate here, because most of the time we'd assume that's the person that is speaking with, that may have signed the form. Okay, so let's take a look here on the provider now. You're going to want some basic information on the case, right? I think records on time require social security number, date of birth, kind of the typical things that you're going to be sending if you were to do a records form yourself, right, Rob?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then on the provider, what kind of information ideally do you want the firm to provide? Is it address, contact?
Whatever you have in your system, you can provide.
Mm-hmm.
Our policy is whatever you provide, we're going to confirm anyway. So we're going to build those providers in our system. So we automatically always call the provider to get the most up-to-date information, because sometimes you have old information and then they've switched billing companies or switched record retrieval record provider companies. So we're going to call them and update our system anyway. So if you have whatever you have, you can give us, and we're certainly going to update it.
I love that. That's fantastic. So then you'd come in here with it active. And once you activate ROT, you're going to see here the opportunity to submit records on time request, records request, or billing request. So you'll see those two at this time, even if you're requesting them and it'll turn into one request because they'll end up requesting both at the same time, you would trigger it twice. So you'll find that in the drop-down menu. And at that point, it moves over to records on time, and they're running with it from there. So key components, which I'm even seeing some people here, for example, are asking, what happens if there's an issue, or what if there's a question that comes up, or maybe something needs to be resubmitted? I'll let Rob speak specifically to the resubmission, but the key component here is that you actually are communicating with records on time through CASEpeer. So if they have an update or a comment on the record, they'll update it here to case notes, and it's all getting captured there. And obviously, it's also going into your messages as well. Okay.
So the question,
I'll let you answer some of these questions that are tied to this as well.
So the question about what if there's mistakes? So obviously, the facilities make mistakes all the time. We find that there's at least a 10% error rate. So part of our job, obviously, is when the records or the bills come in, we're matching them up. We're making sure they match the correct dates. We'll send you what we have, and then we add an addendum in our system. Nothing has to happen in CASEpeer. It's all behind the scenes. That addendum triggers it for us for what's missing. We send the request out. We update your system so you know what we're working on, the status of the records that you received. Then if they didn't send something they were supposed to, we work on that. And of course, there's no charge. So anything that's an error by the facility or an error by my team, if someone in my team made a mistake and didn't get something and you pick up on it and we made a mistake, obviously we're not perfect. I'm not going to say we are. Obviously, there would never be a charge for that. So we correct the errors and we make sure that you get the records and bills that you need.
Mm-hmm.
We just, let's see, there was one in here that was interesting. So some providers bill for affidavits. So obviously any out-of-pocket, put it this way, any out-of-pocket costs that we have to spend that a facility charges, we're going to pass that on to you. So obviously if they charge you today, if you order an affidavit and they charge an affidavit fee, you're going to still pay the affidavit fee, you're going to pay the cost of the record, and then our $35 flat fee. Our flat fee never changes. That's my cost or my fee. And that doesn't change no matter how much work is involved. So if we have to go back and forth for affidavits, go back and forth for something else, they miss something, we don't charge extra for any of that, but we do charge the out-of-pocket costs.
And Rob, can I ask, so is that something that would your team typically note that back to the firm, or is it something that you'll continue through the process and just charge that back as a cost to the case when the case wraps up?
So if it's something that's unusual, then well, of course we're going to update the firm immediately so they know. So for instance, the concept that we use is a single point of contact. So every firm, and depending on the size of the firm, if you might have more than one customer service rep, but our customer service rep can handle it, so you only have 3 paralegals in your firm, you'll have one customer service rep, and that's the only person you ever talk to. Doesn't matter who's working the requests or doing anything else, you'll have a dedicated person. And that's really the person you communicate with, and you can do that by phone or email. And so our system creates a ticketing system so that you're always updated. It does 2 things. One is it marks the status on the medical treatment tab, letting you know that it was new. Then when we picked it up, it changes the status. When we're working on it, it changes the status. And when we deliver it, it changes the status. In addition to that, the email communications, or if you call us, we create a ticket, which turns into an email. So the email goes to you as well as the ticket goes into your system. So that on the notes tab for the client, it's always updating you with everything that we're communicating. So if you set a cost cap, for instance, and you said, hey, I never want to pay for a medical record that's going to cost over $250. That's part of the onboarding process. We set that in the system. If the invoice comes in and it's in excess of the $250, we're going to send you a ticket, which pushes an email directly to the case manager that ordered it, as well as recording it into your notes on the client level saying, hey, here's the information that you requested. They want $275 that exceeds your cost cap. Do you want it? Yes or no? You simply respond and we do whatever it is that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rob. That makes a lot of sense. And so one question here that's good is, which I think and you might know, DWQs for other types of records. Right now, you guys are just doing medical requests as far as I know, right?
Correct. So I'm not even sure, what is a DWQ?
Yeah, Denise, if you want to clarify in the comments, that would be great.
I think those are the disability questionnaires.
Oh, for Social Security.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Nope, they say deposition on written questions. So that's not something I've.
No, that's not something we would do. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Let's see. And then
so this is a good one. Do you ever use high-tech authorizations instead of HIPAA authorizations? So the high-tech, so let me do the quick background for anyone that doesn't know about high-tech. So there was a federal law that was in place for many, many years that law firms didn't know about and didn't use, but it always existed. And high-tech said that if the client, right, that's what it was, has been now interpreted by a federal judge. If a client requests their own records from a facility, the facility can only charge them $6.50. That came about because the federal government loaned a ton of money to facilities, mainly large hospitals, allowing them to go electronic. And then because they went electronic, the federal government said, well, you can't reproduce a record electronically and then charge somebody by the page. That's ridiculous. And so we were all taking advantage of the HITECH Act. A large organization sued and said that it shouldn't apply to law firms or to record retrieval companies. So the answer under the HITECH Act is we're actually doing research now to see if, with a power of attorney and a certain idea that we have, if we can do it. But at the moment, the answer is no. And the risk is if you do it or we do it, and you do it on behalf of the client. So for instance, you create an automated system where you're building an email system, you call your client, you build an email, it goes to that email and you're retrieving it from the email and the client's not involved. The risk, right, so you should all make sure you're aware, the risk is that when someone finds out, being the facility, and they sue you and say, you really subverted the HITECH Act there wasn't the client requesting, it was you on behalf of the client, you created the email, you controlled the process, and then they're going to ask for all of the money that was actually due back to them, that instead of $650, what the record charges should have been, plus there's a fine. So the high-tech ask it's still up in the air as to what exactly it's going to turn into eventually.
So it sounds like it's something you're following closely, but right now it's erring on the side
Right
of
now, we're not
protecting any open.
Although I will say, we do it at our law firm sometimes, like in medical malpractice. So a medical malpractice, and this is something you guys should consider doing for yourselves. When a facility says it's $3,000 for the medical records and you're investigating the case and you're not even sure you want to take it because you want to do a record review first, we will just be honest with the client and say, we're not fronting $3,000 for your set of records because we're unsure if this is a case that makes sense till we review the records. So we'll provide them with the forms, they fill it out, the records get mailed to their house or set up to their email, and then we'll retrieve it from them. So we will use it for that, but not through records on time. That's just direct through the law firm for those really large dollar cases where we're not sure.
That makes sense. And then we had a question earlier that asked if this integration was available now, and yes, it is. So we'll definitely provide information at the end of this webinar and a link as well on where to go to request a demo. Your first start will start with records on time, obviously, and then they'll give you instructions on activating. And of course, if there's any help you guys have on the CASEpeer side, our support team can help.
Kim, why don't you drop that link in now, and then every so often we can drop it in. So Kim's going to drop a link right now into the chat. So if you just want to grab that link, that's going to take you directly to the specific records on time and CASEpeer form. It talks a little bit about the integration, and then it gives you a little form to fill out. There's the link right there. You fill out the form at the bottom and it goes directly into our system, and we're going to contact you immediately and set up either a personal demo or an onboarding and get you going.
Perfect. So we had one question. I answered it in the chat, but I think it's important to address it because it's such an important part. So all of your updates that are happening, whether records on time has received the request, if they have updates on the status once it's complete, all of that's getting captured on the notes. And I know we touched on this a little bit in the general overview, but while we're answering questions, I also want to make sure that we walk through kind of the full circle of that records request. So once the request is complete and fulfilled, Records on Time sends that into CASEpeer. They send not only the status update, but they also send us the final document itself. And that's going to automatically upload into the Documents tab on the case. Okay, so that'll automatically go to your Documents tab, depending on what order you have your left side tabs on. And it will also automatically add the costs to your cost tab. So here you would see a line item for Records on Time as the payee and a capture of how much was paid on this case. So that's not going to be something that's an additional step, as some of you who might use records services now might be used to doing this manually with a monthly invoice and things like that. So those are, to me, huge wins. And again, I'm just really, really proud of this seamless integration that we've built. So with that, Rob, let's go back to the questions because people are clamoring for more details.
Yeah, I saw a good question, and now it's passed. So as Sarah counts, I can move this, right? So
yes, yeah, you can scroll through.
Let's see, where was there? So the question is, can we specify if we are needing something specific, like intake documents from the facility instead of the full set of records? The answer is yes. So after you fill out the initial form here, where you designate the record request for Records on Time, the next field that's going to come up is where you're putting in the actual provider dates. There's a comment section. So in the comment section, we're going to pull those comments. So anything specific that you need us to do or you want us to consider, or specific records that you want, or in your case, what you typed in was you didn't want the full set of records, then absolutely you can type that in on the comments. We're going to grab it when it comes over, and we will get exactly what it is you need. Let's see. I'll roll back
So here you can see all dates or specific dates. So a lot of people will want to put
So
in.
right here, so on there you can see the comments on the bottom. So if you fill that in, we're going to grab that information and we'll be able to do exactly what it is you're looking for. Do we also get a receipt to our email? So yes, the answer is when we deliver the records into your system, our system automatically, I assume this is what we're talking about, is the record delivery. Do we get a receipt to our email? This is Cynthia Pichardo. So the answer is yes. You're going to get an email that comes into whoever the case manager was that ordered the initial record. Basically just a courtesy email saying, hey, just want to let you know the records were delivered and they're in your system. Radiology records, yes. So as we said in the beginning, we run a law firm. So obviously anything that we need in our law firm, we can request for you. So absolutely, we can request radiology records for you. I am hungry for knowledge. That's awesome.
That's what we're here for, Tammy. I love it.
So click on that link and we'll do a demo for you and we'll onboard you and we'll give you all the knowledge you ever needed. This is amazing. Done. Sign me up. Thank you very much, Dorsey. That's what I love to see. Everybody should just type that in. This is amazing. Sign me up now. Do we provide, so the affidavit. Yes, I saw somebody's question earlier. Are we well-versed in civil procedure in every state in the country? So what we have found in our practices with different law firms, there's 3 choices for affidavits in different states. Some facilities will not accept an outside affidavit and they want to use their own. Some facilities are happy to take anything outside of their facility. Then we can either use your affidavit or we have an affidavit. So if there's something specific in your state, that'll be part of the onboarding process. We can show you our affidavit. If you don't think that complies with what you need in your state, more than happy to use your affidavit. So either way, yours, ours, or the facilities, and that depends on the state.
Tammy has a good question here, and I wanted to make sure we address this. So do you guys charge, my understanding is you'll charge back to the case. Her question is it payment on delivery or do you generate invoices once a month? But can you speak to that a little bit more, Rob?
Yep. So right now we have 2 setups for delivery. So I want you to have this mindset. So you all run personal injury law firms. The amazing thing about what we do is that we don't bill clients, so that we get paid by the insurance company, we pay ourselves, we pay the vendors, and then we pay the client. So with that mindset, that's how Records on Time was built. So there's 2 options for billing. One is you send me a check and it goes into literally what would be like an escrow account. It's recorded under your name and we bill against it. The other is, which most firms choose, is they send us a credit card. That way they're earning points on all of their records and we just bill against your credit card.
And with the pay-as-you-go, then it's saving the costs right into CASEpeer. Is that kind of really what we would prefer? Even with the escrow account, does it also add that associated cost directly into CASEpeer, Rob?
So no matter how they do it, the costs are getting pushed into CASEpeer. So on the cost tab, we're going to obviously generate line items, one for the record, what the actual facility charge was. There's going to be a $35 charge for our fee as well. So you'll be able to tie all of that in together. So we can give you a monthly billing statement showing overall what we charge you, and we can give you the credit card form from authorized.net showing all of your credit card charges, tie that against our monthly statement, and obviously then you have all of your charges that are getting pushed directly into your cost tab specifically for your client.
Perfect. Thank you, Rob. That makes sense. Tammy has another follow-up here. Will the monthly billing statement have the client's name on it or just the facility?
Kim, what's on the monthly billing statement?
Monthly billing statement. So we can provide 2 that reconcile together. One actually from our Records on Time platform that includes the client's name, the facility, and a transaction ID number. That transaction ID number then also matches with the authorized.net statement, which only has the facility and that transaction ID. It does not have the patient's name on it.
And the one thing too I'm highlighting here on the cost tab, and this is just a test account that we set up for the integration, but for those of you familiar with CASEpeer, we do have the issued payments report. You could come here to costs and filter on Records on Time, and you'll be able to also get to certain information through CASEpeer as well, because those costs are being added to the case. Medi-Cal, Medicare liens, is that something that you guys do, Rob?
No. So we're definitely not an all service, all provider. I know some of these record retrieval companies say they do everything. We really only do one thing, and that's why we do it great, and that's record retrieval. So that's it. We're not branching out into anything else. Although I have to say there is something that we are developing that I can't exactly speak to quite yet, but I'm hoping it will launch in the next 90 days to 6 months. And when we do announce it, I'll tell you this, I'll make the deal today that we will announce it first to this group, and we'll make it first come out to CASEpeer through Gabby.
Awesome.
And when we announce it, it will be something you've never heard of. Because I can tell you that I belong to at least 3 or 4 different mastermind groups of large law firms around the country, and no one in my groups have ever heard it or mentioned it. I've never seen it. And so
that's
it's going to
exciting.
save your client money, allow you to make money, and it's I don't know how we came up with the idea. We just stumbled over it one day, and we're like, why haven't we thought of that? So we'll announce it here first. We'll do a webinar on it.
I love it. And that sounds wonderful. We'll definitely want to book you for that. And Dorsey, I don't blame you for asking. You know, those are fun for every firm. So I get that. Let's see. We had a question from Desiree. I think you touched on this already, but it sounds like firms can set their own limit. So during onboarding, they'll say, hey, I don't want to spend more than $100 without you checking with me, or $200.
Absolutely. Yep. So it's what
and then you'll reach out.
Cap. Yeah. So part of onboarding, you'll set the cost cap, and we will never exceed that. When the invoice comes in, we'll just contact you through the system, and you let us know whether or not you want those records or not.
Perfect. Sounds good. Let's see. Lots of great questions. Oh yeah, so here's a good question here. How do you guys go about retrieving requests for facilities that use services like SIOX or ChartSwap? Same as usual?
Yeah, no different than any other service. We log into their platform. Obviously, we use their platform all the time for our own law firm and for all of our clients. And we have an account, and that's how we get the records through each of those different facilities.
I think more specifically, they were asking if there's an additional cost. There's no secondary cost. So if it comes from ABC Hospital and ABC Hospital gets their records through SIOX, there's only one $35 charge for that request.
Got it. Kim, thanks for the clarification. That makes a lot of sense. We had another request here, and maybe this touches on it a little bit, but Nicole Rivera earlier had asked if there's records and billing, like from a hospital, 2 different requests. So in CASEpeer, you'll trigger those twice. If Records on Time knows it's one request and they just have to send one letter, one auth, one cost, they'll group it. And so there'll just be one fee on your bill. But if it is something that is split and does require 2 separate requests, there's 2 fees. Similar to it being 2 follow-up processes inside your firm, it's 2 follow-up processes for Records on Time.
So our experience in getting VA records, I mean, we get VA records on a regular basis. Part of our law practice, obviously, is we have a Veterans Disability Division. We're nationwide. We do veterans cases, so we're very used to getting records from the VA. Also, on the personal injury side, we have lots of clients who treat at the VA right in Providence, where our main office is out of, in Providence, Rhode Island. So yeah, no problem getting VA records.
Wonderful. I think, Rob, you've almost answered every question we've had out there. Guys, keep them coming. That's what we're here for.
So VA military treatment facility billing. So we can request it for you. Often they have a form that they want to use specifically as part of the lien process that they have against the cases, but it's something we can talk about offline.
And we have another one, Kaiser and Rawlings bills. Is that something that you guys would do?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, perfect. Let's see. All right, they just keep coming. I love it. All right, well, that's what we're here for. So, Rob, what has been the feedback that you've gotten as you've brought this to market? Obviously, you've used this successfully for your own firm, but as you've rolled it out to others, how has that been? And do you have any success stories you want to share with us?
I mean, the difference for us is really 2 pieces, I would say. So one is obviously the technology, which is awesome, right? But There are definitely other companies that are integrated, depending on what case management system you use. But the difference is the flexibility that we have. So we're open to doing whatever needs to be done, right? So when we need to make modifications or adjustments for a specific law firm where they're asking for something special, that's why we went with single point of contact. We're always looking to improve our system because one, it improves it obviously for us, for our law firm when we improve the system, and it's what clients, customers expect. And so our goal is to provide great customer service, which is how we built the law firm originally and how we're building the record retrieval service. So, you know, by partnering with someone like you, right, who has had the same mindset, right? Everything, when we've had conversations all along, it's, are we going to be benefiting the client? Is this going to work? How's that going to work? Right? That's our goal, is to make sure everybody has a fantastic experience. And so we've never really lost sight of that along the way in anything that we do. And that's really what makes us successful. The technology is amazing, no question.
And
but
look,
at the end of the day, it doesn't replace, right, the ability and the caring of making sure we're doing a great job, because we're all in this for the same reason, and that's the end user. Those are our clients. So that's, someone trusts you to take their personal injury case, their Social Security, their veterans case to make a difference in their life. So the record retrieval service has the same vision and mission as does the law firm, and that's really assisting those people.
I love that, Rob. That's so important. And to that point, we've had a couple people ask, I think you may have addressed this earlier, but how long does it typically take? I know that every facility is a little bit different, but what does your follow-up maybe look like for records on time?
Yeah, so I would say in the average location in the country, we usually start out around 30 days is what I try to quote people. Sometimes it's a little longer, and it depends on the monster-sized facility you have and how badly they've been burned in the past by somebody. And so our goal is to build the relationship. We're not the kind of place that just sends these crazy random emails through an automated system and yelling and screaming. We're literally going to get to know someone in that system. We've sent people out in person to build relationships. We send things to facilities because at the end of the day, we're here long term. And so when people kind of realize that we're willing to work with them and set dates and be reasonable, so we say, how long? And so, okay, we're going to call you on that day and we're going to have 15 requests on that day. And so only one person calls each facility. So even though I might have 100 record retrievers assigned to a certain geographic area, they're all specific to facilities. We never have multiple people calling the same place. That's just not how you build a relationship. So I say it starts at somewhere between 30, 35 days, and probably we get down right now. Our average in locations where we are extremely well versed is probably 22 days.
And what does, if they check off rush request, how does the rush request work, Rob?
So that's why we don't charge for it. So the truth is, there's no such thing. So if for a company that tells you it takes them 40 days, tell you 20 days, but it takes them 40 days, their rush request is they're doing what I'm already doing on every request, right? So if you really need a rush request and you check it off, we're going to call the facility, and part of the relationship, we're going to draw attention to it and say, hey, I know this is our agreement and this is how long you normally take it when we have a follow-up, but I have a client who really needs this in a rush, and here's why. Can you help me out, and what can you do for me? And so it's just it's a conversation, right? It's how else would you create a rush? It's not like you can pay the facility a fee and say, hey, can I pay an extra $10 for the record and you'll rush it? That doesn't exist. Even if we did, they wouldn't do it. So we'd end up getting it in the same time, if not longer. And so it's really about calling our contact at that facility and calling in the favor and saying, hey, I really need this in a rush. Can you get it to me in 5 days?
Yeah, I love that. It's an ethical long-term approach. It's the way that a law firm would handle these relationships themselves. And at the end of the day, it bodes well for all law firms and the industry, and certainly your reputation out there as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. We had one other question that popped up for me. Updating of the status. Is it something that happens every week or two, or when there's changes to the request?
So the status as far as on the medical treatment is going to be, there's new, which is when you put it in. Then there's going to be when we initially pick it up. Then it's going to change when it's being processed. So not only have we picked it up, but now we've actually ordered the record. So it's in process. And then we're going to change it again when we deliver it.
Yeah, and any of those activities or messages back and forth, if there's clarification or anything like that, will go into the notes as well.
Right. So you have that's the 4 status updates, which goes to every record on the medical treatment tab. And then in addition to that, obviously all the communication, whether it's by phone or email, turns into a ticket on our end and gets pushed at the client level.
I love that. Fantastic. Well, we're coming up close on time. We have one question about cancellation. So what if a request needs to be canceled? Will they reach out to their point of contact? Or
You just reach out to your CSR and say, hey, we ordered this request by accident. I need to cancel it.
Okay, perfect. And I don't think that's something that's been addressed enough. I think that is such an important piece. Rob said this so many times. I want to draw attention to the fact that all of you will have, every firm has their own point of contact, dedicated point of contact at Records on Time. When we were talking and looking for other partners in the space, that's something that really stood out to me. I mean, it's a level of customer service, I think, that's very important in this otherwise sometimes dehumanized relationship. So I think that's really important and something that makes you guys stand out, Rob.
Thanks. It's definitely working well.
Yeah. A couple questions about cancellations popping up. It sounds like maybe this is something they've seen before. Is there a time frame or a cost associated with that?
I mean, the cost is generated obviously when we start to work on your request. So if you put a request in through the system, it comes into our system, a record retriever picks up the request, which it's not easy to cancel the request, obviously, before we do it, because our goal is same day that you put the request in that we're sending the request out. So that once the request goes out, our system is automatically charging for it. If you immediately called us and said, hey, I need to cancel it, we would just void the charge. So there's really no, I would say, hard and fast rule that I say X number of hours. I mean, if we're doing business together, we're business partners. That's the way I look at it. Making $35 off some stupid voided transaction versus having a long-term relationship where you're happy is much more important. So I can't even say there's a policy. I don't think there is, and I don't know that anybody's ever complained. So if you have to void something, you void it, and we're going to void the charge. Obviously, if you void the charge after we've already gotten the records, it's too late.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense. And, it's a customer first way of doing business, which I really like. Let's see, certified records, extra charge for that?
Yep, so no extra charge, and nothing ever has an extra charge, not OCRing, there's no contracts, there's no expedited fee. We do the certified records, we'll use your form, our form, or the facilities form. However you want to do it is fine.
I love that. And that's where I just highlight again, when you're going into making your request, presumably part of that is that when they go in here and they're doing that request, they can put that in the comments or the notes to provider. And then if there's anything else that you guys need to collaborate on, you can pass that back and forth.
And there's the link again. So just click on that link and right on that page towards the bottom, fill out the information, and that's how we're going to be able to reach out to you individually.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Nothing brings me more joy than seeing a webinar that's this interactive with this many questions. And, Rob's, ready for all of them. Let's see. Billing and medical records requests, same facility, separate charges. Couple last questions coming in, Rob.
It's not necessarily about the same facility. It's who provides the record and the billing. So the example I gave earlier was if you order records from Dr. Smith and Dr. Smith's office generates his own records and his own billing statement, then there's only one fee. If Dr. Smith hires one company to do his records and another company to do his billing, then that's obviously going to be 2 fees because we're following up with 2 different vendors in order to get those records for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. As all of you have seen in the chat, Kim has shared a link directly to the CASEpeer form. Obviously, if you want to learn more about Records on Time, it's right here. I'm certainly not cutting off questions. I'm just going to pull up the follow-up information on the screen. And we still have a few minutes left, so we can keep going.
So smaller facilities, not a problem. If they send us paper, we convert the paper to a PDF. We OCR it, we scan it, compress it, and send it to you. So whether it's, there's no additional fee, again, no additional fee ever. And so whether it's paper or electronic doesn't matter to us. We obviously have huge scanners since we're OCRing everything. So we just run the paper through and that's it. You get it as an electronic file.
Perfect. And then we have Yeah, you see that question from Renee?
Yeah, so we have requested records billing that have gone unanswered and or ignored. Do you run into that? I mean, of course. So I wish everybody was easy to deal with. So I mean, that's why we start by trying to build the relationship with them and we work them. At the end of the day, there obviously is federal law that governs the amount of time that they have to comply and send us the records. Technically, it's 30 days. And so if we go that route, we can press them on it, and we have done it. I mean, in my own state, I have a couple of doctors, quite frankly, that just hate me because they want to send the records at 120 days. And we're just not going to tolerate that. And so normally I give them 45 days because I just know how their office runs. And I warn them at the 30-day level. And at 45 days, we send them a complaint and say, we're sending someone to your office to pick up the records, or I'm filing the complaint and we'll see you in court. And then they just give the records to the person who's picking them up. But that's far and few between, right?
Yeah.
Because we're about building relationships and getting to know people, and we're creating notes in our system on their kids' names, on their vacations. You know, we don't usually have a lot of trouble where somebody ignores us. Where people go slower than we want, sure, but ignore us, no, that doesn't usually happen.
Perfect. And then we have a question here about physician and hospital billing. So, and I'd say just typically in CASEpeer, Donna, people are putting those in separately. So someone goes to the hospital and you have ER physicians and ER radiology. We typically see people adding those in separately in CASEpeer. And so then I would assume, Rob, they'd be separate requests. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So those aren't just separate bills, right? Those are really separate providers that work at a hospital. So inside the hospital, you either have hospitalists who literally work for the hospital, and then you're getting it from the hospital, or you have people who are outside contractors working in the hospital, like radiology. Often hospitals have a radiology department, but it's not the hospital's, it's someone else's. Or the emergency room billing team, right? Because they have doctors working for an outside group coming in. So yes, if there are all different people or groups that are working at a facility that all have different records from somewhere else, or all have different billing from somewhere else, often you see the records come from just the facility, but the bills come from other different vendors. We charge for each vendor.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it would be the same if someone's doing that in-house. So yeah. And then how are providers specified when needing record request on the ROT requesting tab? I'm not sure exactly maybe what this question is asking.
So in your, no different than you're doing it now. So in your medical treatment tab, you're going to build. So if you had a new provider, let's say your client came in and treated somewhere they've never treated before, you're going to build that provider in your own system, just as you always would. And then you're going to order that record with the drop down, ordering it from records on time. And then that's how you do it. So you're only in your system, you're never coming to my system. And whether you get the information right or wrong doesn't matter. Every provider that's sent to us has to get checked off and certified that we verified it, so we know we have the most up-to-date information.
Perfect. So for example, if maybe the records address here is old or something like that, you're verifying on your end anytime.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I love that. Okay. Oh, perfect. Just making sure. I'm glad we answered it. That was what I was most worried about. Perfect. All right. Any other questions? If not, listen, I know how these things work. I'm sure you guys probably all still have tens, if not more questions for Rob, Kim, and their team. So please visit their link, register, book some time with them. Have them walk through their services and their pricing. Again, we're just so proud to have this integration. It's really seamless. It's really been a fantastic collaboration, and I'm super proud of both of our teams for putting this together. Oh, thanks, Kim, for sharing that. Again, it's nice to have that link. So again, go visit, click around. If you have any questions at all for myself or Rob, please feel free to reach out to us directly. That's what we're here for. And again, any questions, anything related to records on time will be for Rob and his team. If there's anything specific to CASEpeer, feel free to ask. And if we think it's more of a ROT, records on time question, we'll forward it to them, and vice versa. Our teams are close and they're communicating. So feel free, and we'll work it out from there. All right. Well, with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. I don't often get to host these training webinars, so it's a joy to be here with all of you. And Rob, Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, super excited to bring this integration.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving us the opportunity. We are super excited, and it's been an amazing experience so far, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Fabulous. Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.